Aloha, I'm Denise Yamaguchi, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Agricultural Foundation, and I want to welcome you to the 17th episode of Eat, Think, Drink. Before we start, I want to thank our presenting sponsors, Central Pacific Bank and Alaska Airlines. This is the first time that we're doing this in this venue, and we're really excited to be here at Central Pacific Bank. I also want to send a mahalo to our supporting sponsors, Alexander and Baldwin, Bear, Kamehameha Schools, Kona Brewing Company, Lend-Lease, Mahi Pono, Southern Glazers Wine and Spirits, the State of Hawaii, and the Ulupono Initiative. Tonight's program is being recorded and will be made available on our website. Please silence your phones and refrain from talking as a courtesy to the presenters. Food and drinks will be served in the tide pool areas after the program. The Hawaii Agricultural Foundation launched Eat, Think, Drink in November of 2016 to spark meaningful conversations about important agricultural and food issues facing our community, and to build and engage a larger network of conscious and caring consumers like you. Tonight is our 17th episode of Eat, Think, Drink, and we are excited to present Ag Redux, from plantation to diversification, on how our state, in particular Maui, is moving its plantation past to diversified agriculture. Maui's plantation history dates back centuries, with both sugar and pineapple dominating as drivers of Hawaii's economy from the mid-1800s to 1970s. In fact, these two crops brought many of our families here, including mine, as immigrants to Hawaii to work on the plantations. Over this time, and with Hawaii becoming part of the United States in 1959, these crops became cheaper to grow in other places. To give you an idea of how fast the demise was for sugar and pine, in 1980, Hawaii hosted 14 sugar and pine plantations on 300,000 acres. In 2017, 27 years later, these two crops accounted for less than 5,000 acres. In 2016, the year prior, Alexander and Baldwin's Hawaii Commercial and Sugar Company closed, leaving 41,000 acres of land in central Maui fallow. In 2018, Mahi Pono, a joint venture between Pomona Farming, a California-based agricultural group, and the Public Sector Pension Investment Board, one of Canada's largest pension investment managers, purchased those lands with a commitment to practicing sustainable agriculture, to growing food for local consumption, to being responsible in the use of our natural resources, and to providing high-quality employment for agricultural employment. It is the expertise of Pomona Farming in agriculture and the capital from the pension fund that has given Mahi Pono the opportunity, Maui and Mahi Pono the opportunity and ability to repurpose these lands for diversified agriculture. We are honored to have as our keynote speaker Darren Strand, Mahi Pono's Vice President of Agriculture Operations and Business Development, as our keynote speaker. Prior to his tenure at Mahi Pono, Strand was the owner and president of Hali'i Maile Pineapple Company. He was born and raised in Willamette, Oregon, and came to Hawaii for graduate work in soil chemistry at the University of Hawaii. He has since worked in agriculture in the islands and holds leadership positions on a number of nonprofit boards, including chairperson for the Grown in Maui Committee, Vice President of the Maui County Farm Bureau, and member of the Maui Innovation Center Advisory Board. I'm pleased to welcome Darren Strand to the stage.
Well, thank you. So the introduction and the description, I don't think I have anything left to say about Mahi Pono or myself, but I'll try. I'm having a little bit of imposter anxiety, and I can't imagine why anybody would want to come and listen to me, but that's okay. I think it's the story of Mahi Pono and even my story of how I've moved through farming in Hawaii is possibly pretty interesting. So I moved to. I want to start with just a real quick question, because I'm very passionate about the food system in Hawaii, and I think it's changing for us right now. I've been farming in Hawaii for 20 years, And the way that I purchased my food 20 years ago is a lot different than how I get my food now, and I think it's probably for a lot of people. And just by a show of hands, how many people got their produce or meat or dairy items directly from a farmer or from a CSA or from the farmer's market or from any of those things? I mean, so a lot of us are getting our foods this way now. We used to just go to the grocery store. And so it's really changing, and it's kind of an exciting time for us to be a part of that. At my house, we live on a few acres. I have ducks, chickens, goats, a pig, some cats, and a dog. And I go to the feed store, and I walk up to the counter, and I say, I'd like a bag of sweet cob, some egg layer, some hog and sow, and some goat grower, and E-I-E-I-O. And so that's who I am. I'm a farmer, and I'm proud to grow your food. So I moved to Oahu in 2001, and I started a program working on my master's degree at UH in soil chemistry. Almost immediately, I was hired by Del Monte in Kunia to run spray and irrigation operations. And I moved my family to the plantation camp in Kunia, and that was perfect for me. We lived in if you're familiar with Kunia, we lived in the very first house where the flagpole is and the bus stop is, and that's where I wanted to live. And they told me, managers don't live there. Managers live in the supervisor part of the camp. And I wanted to live in that house, and we lived there. It was perfect for me and my boys. My wife, not so much, but we did okay. Del Monte closed in 2006, and I moved to Maui and started working for Maui Pineapple Company as they transitioned from cannery fruit to fresh market pineapple. And they closed their operations on Maui in 2009. And I was part of a small group of kind of stubborn investors that continued that. We bought all the equipment and leased the land back from Maui Land and Pineapple and continued to grow Maui Gold pineapple on a smaller, focused scale. In 2018, we sold our ownership to the Levesque family that still runs the distillery and still operates the farm. And I worked for a little over a year for A&B as they transitioned and looked for ways to transition their former sugarcane land. So I feel like I'm uniquely qualified to talk about why plantations have failed. I've been a part of several failing farming operations in Hawaii. And I think, we're, a lot of us on Maui, we drive around, we see what Mahi Pono is doing every day, but outside of Maui, maybe we're not aware of what's happening. So I want to talk a little bit about what Mahi Pono is and what we're doing with the acreage and the infrastructure on Maui. So like Denise said, we own and operate 41,000 acres of ag land in central Maui. We were created at the end of 2018 in a joint venture between Pomona Farming and the Public Sector Pension Fund. They're Canada's largest pension investment firm. So PSP owns about 99% of the company. Our Pomona principals own about a percentage, and so in a way it's like private equity. They own a little bit and run the operations of our farm. The land that was purchased from A&B was former sugarcane land, and it was farmed by HC&S. HC&S was in operation for over 100 years and had maybe up to or over 1,000 employees. I think it's important to note that HC&S was the last sugar operation, and for reference, Kauai closed their plantation in 2009, and the mill in Lahaina closed in 1999. So they had scale and efficiency that allowed them to continue where others failed. But with dropping sugar prices, rising operational costs, the field burning issue, declining water availability, they ultimately closed in 2016. And A&B had a vision after that closure to divide the parcel into areas and find medium and large operators to continue to farm diversified ag. There was a lot of interest in leasing ag land, but it was hard to find people that were capable and really positioned for success on that. So the initial contact was made between Pomona Farming and actually Maui Grown Coffee in Kaanapali and A&B in early 2018. And they wanted to look at a partnership to basically expand coffee production. The fit was nearly ideal, and through a very complicated due diligence process, they finished it in less than a year. And I think it's important to note that A&B should get a lot of credit for really not just seeking out any partner or any suitor, but really waiting for the right one that was dedicated to continuing in long-term agriculture. So that's kind of who Mahi Pono is and how we came to be. And then, again, those of us that are driving up and down around Maui, we're seeing a lot of activity, a lot of things being planted. Sorry. So as of March 2022, we planted over 1.2 million trees on approximately 5,500 acres of former sugarcane land. So orchard crops and row crops, and of our orchard crops, we've planted mostly citrus, and we have 750,000 trees on 3,012 acres. This is mostly Persian limes, 1,600 acres of lemons, 261 acres of mandarins and tangelos, and 190 acres of oranges. Our plans are to expand this to at least 10,000 acres of citrus, with about 80% of it being Persian limes. While some of our early fields have started to produce limes and lemons, our harvest won't really ramp up for the next several years, but within 5 years, we'll be producing over 30 million pounds of citrus every month. So we planted about 393 acres of coffee, which is about just under 500,000 trees, and we have plans to increase that over the next few years. We're working hard to select varieties to farm that give us, kind of avoid commodity quality issues, but allow us commodity style efficiencies as we scale that up. We harvested our first coffee from our first plantings in November of last year. They did really well. We were pleased with it, but we're very optimistic about our production, but we still have to contend with coffee leaf rust and coffee berry borer. These are big issues for us. We started planting macadamia nuts. Our grafting program has just started. Grafting macadamia nuts is very difficult, and the planting out of that's going to be a long process. We have a few hundred trees on 5 acres now. It's our plan to plant over 500 by the end of this year and up to 2,000 acres over the next 5 to 7 years. We've planted about 9 acres of avocado. We'd like to plant more, but every time we plant avocado, the deer and the pig find them and are destroying them. So we're planting avocado in fields that we can fence and manage the deer population. And right now we're growing a Haas variety, which is the only one that you can export, but we'd like to expand into some of our local favorites that we all like to grow if we can manage those problems. We have about 15 acres right now dedicated to canoe crops, and we have about 300 ulu trees, and we've started the second phase of planting another 15 acres, and that'll be completed by the end of the year. We have about 20,000 or 21,000 native windbreak trees planted, and this spans several miles across our fields. And we're growing a Milo tree, and we've started to harvest the seeds from that first group of trees, and we're starting the next generation of a tree that's really the ideal robust tree for that purpose. For diversified egg crops, we've grown papaya, onions, potatoes, watermelon at scale over the last couple of years, and we're expanding production of the crops that have done well for us. Right now, we're planting 45 acres of seedless watermelon to target the summer holidays. And while most of this distribution will be on Maui, we'll certainly have sufficient volumes to export to Oahu and the neighbor islands. At our Chef's Corner project, we have about 125 acres of fruit and vegetable production, and we've harvested in 2021 just over 1 million pounds of food. And we continue to expand our crops of kale, broccolini, lettuce, green beans, sweet potato, squashes, sweet onions, colored carrots, and many more. I have a lot of pressure on me to focus that because I'd like to grow a lot of different things, but the people that are above me would like me to focus on maybe 5 or 6 things. But our goal there and our focus is really to increase the availability of high-quality, locally grown produce. We also have 17 tenants on 84 acres of a community farm, which is our kind of version of an ag park on private land. Our goal there was to provide new farmers with access to water and land and some of the resources that we have to, again, help them get started and expand local food production. On top of this, we're partners in the Maui Cattle Company Collective of member ranches. These partners include Haleakala Ranch, Ulapalakua Ranch, Hana Ranch, No Bigger Ranch, Kaupo Ranch, and our own Kuloleo Ranch. And most of these ranches provide calves to the collective, and these are grass-finished on 7,400 acres of pasture that we manage. The cattle are processed at our new facility, and we have the capacity to increase this, but we're having issues with pasture quality and drought mitigation. And I'd also like to talk about, we've been making a significant investment in infrastructure. So we, just like HCNS, we own and manage an electrical system that's completely independent of MECO. And we've already started to plan, large solar systems to offset the cost of pumping water and the cost of electricity for our future processing facilities. We're making huge investments in redesigning the field irrigation systems for each orchard planting. The sugar system was really designed to move a lot of water over a long period of time, and with citrus and orchard crops, we need to move a lot of water very quickly and put the right amount on each tree over a short period of time. And so this is done by installing new, larger main lines, new filter stations in most fields, and having micro emitter sprinklers on every tree. So we calculate with this investment, we'll be able to use 50% less water over the same acreage as sugar. And we've also built and have started planning processing facilities. And at some point, you can imagine to handle 30 million pounds of citrus, we're going to need quite a massive processing facility. So, excuse me again. Sorry. Why do I think Mahi Pono is different, and maybe why will we be successful where other operations have failed or maybe haven't even started to take the first step? And I think that it's important to note that that's not really our attitude, but also if we can show that this style of agriculture works and this type of investment works, maybe it's a model that'll work in other places in the state of Hawaii also. So number one, we're culturally, environmentally, and socially responsible. So our investment funding is from an ESG platform within PSP, and we're and standing on a broad set of sustainability issues. This is valued by our investment partners, by our local leadership, and by our customers. Our managing partners from Pomona Farming have over 45,000 acres in production in California and 6 different locations, and their crops include almonds, pistachios, wine grapes, raisins, olives for oil, and walnuts. And through this partnership with Pomona Farming, we're implementing practices on Maui that they've had in operation for several years already. And these include a company initiative to reduce herbicide use, bee-friendly certifications, solar energy systems to offset pumping and processing, and a major reduction in water use through both technology and management practices. And so our focus is on increasing local food production, efficient water use, workforce development, local purchasing, and the consideration of climate change mitigation in our day-to-day farming decisions. And secondly, this is kind of, I don't know how better to say this, but we're capable. Our local leadership team continues to build a highly qualified team of managers and operators. So this couples with the tremendous resource that we have from Pomona, and it brings to a table, we can leverage this with global partnerships in the industry. So Mahi Pono and Pomona have developed programs and partnerships already with the DOE, UH, Go Farm, MEDB STEMworks, and many others as we continue to build this skill baseline from the ground up. We realize that much of the responsibility to build a qualified workforce as our farm grows will fall on Mahi Pono and our partnerships. One such example is a recent STEM scholarship program that we did in partnership with Maui Economic Development Board. And in this challenge, students were asked to come up with ideas to mitigate wind issues that we have and the problems that trees have growing in these conditions. So we had over 125 students submit solutions from all across the state, and the solutions were really amazing. I mean, really amazing what high school students came up with. The top 3 finishers, all of them probably have solutions that will be implemented in some way on our farm. And each of the winners was given a $500 cash award and offered a paid summer internship to work at Mahi Pono. And so that's really the first step in kind of building the future workforce. Thirdly, we're reliably resourced. I mean, we have the land, we have water, we have labor, and we have capital. And there exists an amazing opportunity in this manifestation and this partnership between PSP, Pomona Farming, Mahi Pono, and A&B. It's been decades, in my opinion, since Hawaii has seen this level of investment in agriculture and ag infrastructure, and the commitment to build a stable, qualified labor pool. You know, all these things happening on what I think is possibly the most fertile piece of land in the state. Fourthly, we're committed to quality. The Pomona farming model really just boils down to we can do better, and we can do it best. And our drive is to take every opportunity to improve traditional processes by continually innovating farm practices and resource management. As an example, we get our trees, grafted trees come out of a nursery in California, which is the most reputable nursery in California. So they're grafted in California, and then they're shipped here as little tiny grafted trees. We've made a significant investment in the Maui nurseries so that in their equipment and their space to allow them to receive these small trees and grow them out for 6 or 8 months so that we can plant a vigorous tree in our fields. And then the investment in the complete redesign of our infield irrigations is being done by one of the premier irrigation engineering companies in the US to develop a system that provides each tree with only the amount of water that it needs, saving millions of gallons of water every day. And finally, we're responsive to the market. Mahi Pono has the scale to participate in a world food economy, and we also are positioned to provide food to the local consumers also. We have global partnerships with businesses like Sunkist, and through the partnership, we've connected with Chick-fil-A. And I don't know if you know, like, I'm kind of excited about Chick-fil-A. That's how you get a body like this. And they make their lemonade fresh daily at each one of their restaurants. And so it's possible that in the next few years, all the lemonade at the Chick-fil-A's in Hawaii will come from lemons that are grown in our fields on Maui. Through our current brand, Maui Harvest, we're in continuous discussions with retailers, wholesalers, institutional buyers, restaurants, food hubs, chefs, and our neighbors about what kind of products and what quantities they desire. And even with that, there still exists a disconnect between farming and consumers in Hawaii that is influenced both by the difficulties of farming and a food system that has really become super efficient at importing over 80% of our perishable farm-grown items. So you ask a farmer, and they'll complain that they can't sell all the product they grow. And you ask a chef, and they'll tell you that they can't buy enough local product to meet the demands of their restaurant. So Ryan Patton, one of our principals, has said, I want to transform how people understand and connect with their food at every level in California and Hawaii. The food system in Hawaii is no doubt starting to change. While consumer expectations are driving a lot of this, there also exists an idea of food equity that we're starting to see in Hawaii. And that's where Mahi Pono stands and performs. Through sustainable and responsible ag practices, we want to grow high-quality, consistent food for local consumption. And, thank you.